Production yield increases, yes, but not that much. The other day, a friend was telling me that he bought a bag of GM seed for 240 euros, one sack of seeds. The seed I bought to plant this cornfield cost me just over 100 euros per bag. That's a difference of 140 euros. We're talking about a yield of 1,000 kilograms of corn. But look at the difference in the price of each bag. The lobbying power of one of these companies is outrageous. They can convince anyone. They say we can get 1,000 kilograms out of their seed, or 2,000, or 3,000. I've been doing this my whole life. I know about production. But ultimately, what does it all mean? No one is thinking of the risks.
What are the goals behind the creation of GM products?
The genetic modification of plants is a tool for knowledge. Once you have a better understanding of how the plant works, you can arrive at ideas and create plants that are resistant to a certain type of insect, or which allow for the use of less herbicide, because the plant is more resistant.
Do you believe that current GM crops are better than what we had before?
No, of course not.
It's been almost 2 decades since the first GM crops were planted. Is it possible we'll see some kind of fallout in the future that we haven't considered?
Never in the entire history of innovation has more time been spent thinking of the consequences before trying something.
It's been tested in every way possible.
Nothing is tested in every way possible. Look, conventional crops haven't been tested. In some cases, not a single test has been run. GM crops have been tested more than any other innovation in history, both related to food and otherwise. You can't say GM products might do such and such. Every product has been tested and been shown to be safe. There hasn't been a single incident. Every headline you've seen has been a lie.
Given what you've just said, do you think every product might be genetically modified in the future?
No, because the technique is effective in solving certain specific problems. It's not a panacea. It's not a cure-all. It's not miraculous. The hypocrisy we're seeing in Europe is that there are many impediments to genetic modification. Fields are being left fallow, but 35 million hectares of European soil are being used to grow food, and nobody knows exactly how those 35 million hectares are being used. If you go order a steak at a restaurant, that beef was raised with GM grain from Argentina.
Is this made clear on the labels?
There's no real reason to put it on the labels. If the genes we eat were to have an effect on us, we'd all have horns by now, because we've eaten all the genes necessary to grow horns thousands of times, every time you eat a rare steak.
Francisco, would you eat a GM product?
Of course I would. And I'd wear a T-shirt made out of GM cotton. They don't bite. There's no reason to set them apart.
So why all the controversy?
It's a matter of ideology. The GM issue has become a strong symbol for the struggle against multinationals, against globalization, against U.S. dominance. Each of these issues, taken separately, is relevant and worthy of debate, but they have nothing to do with the value of an innovation that makes it possible for us to act in a better way, not worse.
Is there unity and unanimity in the scientific community when it comes to GM products?
Of course. Among scientists who know something about this subject, and not all of them do, there's no debate to be had.
Those who are against genetic modification say that the genes found in GM plants can pass on to wild plants, thereby modifying the natural surroundings.
That's impossible. Impossible. A gene from a plant is part of its genome. And just as no gene from a stalk of corn has flown off in search of adventure, no gene that is added to GM corn will do that either. That's just ridiculous. It makes no sense at all.
900 million people go hungry, 1.4 billion others are overeating. But that doesn't mean they're healthy. 400 million of them are overweight.
Obesity is the gateway to type 2 diabetes. In Spain, 13 or 14% of the population is diabetic. If you're overweight, you're more likely to suffer from hip and knee arthritis, high blood pressure, problems with elevated fat levels in the blood, and other cardiovascular problems. And the likelihood of cancer is also higher.
They call it the 21st century epidemic. According to the World Health Organization, 3.4 million people die every year from problems related to obesity, an illness that has become more dangerous than smoking.
The food industry is responsible for the commercialization of high-calorie foods at very low cost, which makes them an obvious choice. We need to educate people. In order to make healthy choices, you have to have information. You have to know.
Education, information, and good eating habits are key. But consumers must also take responsibility for what they eat.
The food industry needs to collaborate, and so do healthcare workers and the media. We all need to tackle this problem. We all need to work together. We can't just blame consumers. Most food labels are illegible or impossible to understand. Sometimes the information refers to a serving size of 100 grams, but it turns out the entire package only has 40 grams. We've got to change how labeling works. Labels need to be simple and easy for people to understand. They need to provide information. I know there are groups in the food industry that are working on this problem. There are people developing more diet beverages, low-fat foods. So yes, people are aware. They're working on it. But we've got to do more. Clearly this is a business, but we can't sacrifice the health of the entire population just to make money.
Let's look at functional foods, also known as miracle products. They claim to improve your cholesterol levels, your gut flora, the body's defenses. How much of that should we believe? Do these products really have these properties?
Almost all of those claims are false. Almost none of them are based on scientific evidence. And in most cases, their nutritional value is low as well. They don't contain what they say they do. And what's more, they don't even contain the nutritional value that a more natural product would. So generally speaking, this is a bed of lies and false claims.
When we see a man in a lab coat on TV who says 8 out of 10 professionals recommend this product, should we believe him?
What we should believe is that that man has been paid a lot of money by the powers that be. There's a huge conflict of interest there, which prioritizes the interests of the food industry rather than the interests of patients, of people.
Another phrase they use when selling these products is scientific studies show. Who exactly is behind these scientific studies?
In general, I'd say there's a lack of scientific studies.
They don't exist?
They don't exist. Not in the sense that we understand scientific studies, which are randomized clinical trials. The food industry barely conducts any of these. The most the food industry does is the so-called before and after. They just do observational studies, which can't be justified because they aren't scientific. That's how they continue to deceive people on a massive scale.
If you don't mind, let's look at some products that are added to certain foods. Omega-3.
They make no sense. They don't add anything. They're not useful.
Vitamins.
In some cases, they can even be harmful. In smokers, for example, or diabetics. They can be harmful, and they've never been proven to be beneficial, not even in pregnant women.
Antioxidants.
Same thing here. They can be harmful in some cases. They haven't been scientifically proven to work.
They often try to sell us products that have been fortified with calcium. Can these products strengthen our bones?
We do need a certain amount of calcium. Those who eat a traditional Mediterranean diet have more than enough. Now, if you increase your intake of calcium, you could have heart problems or even a heart attack. So too much calcium, added calcium, isn't good for you.
Eating too much calcium could give you a heart attack.
Yes. It could contribute to arteriosclerosis in the coronary arteries, which leads to myocardial ischemia, and in many cases, heart attack. You should consume less calcium and avoid all products that have been fortified with calcium. Those products are associated with heart attacks. It's been proven over and over again.
Currently, what is the most dangerous food-related hoax?
I think the most dangerous risk we run is turning companies like Coca-Cola into hydration companies. At the last Congress for Human Hydration organized by Coca-Cola, they locked in the endorsement of universities, scientific societies, and many other prestigious scientific groups. But it's completely unsubstantiated. Water hydrates, and the best water is water from your faucet. This tendency could result in an increase in the obesity epidemic.
Why is it so easy to sell health to people?
What they're really selling is fear. They're continually spreading fear. It's easy to be scared. Those of us who are in good health are aware that we could lose it. It's a vicious cycle. In an effort to hang on to our good health, we're making ourselves sick. We are always worried about our health. Being healthy means enjoying life, so enjoy the life you're living. Forget about your cholesterol. Be happy.
Why is it legal to sell products in this way if it's all false?
In the beginning, there wasn't much regulation, and that lasted for years. Now there's legislation that prohibits companies from lying outright. They're still allowed to make suggestions, but they can't make statements or propose solutions. The food industry is extremely powerful, so they take advantage of holes in the legislation in order to keep selling ridiculous products.
Is the food industry powerful enough to inform policy and legislation when it comes to these products?
Up to now, the food industry has had a charitable social image, and that really boosts its power. There are very few people who are opposed to the abuses and atrocities they continually commit.
Taking all of this into account, is it fair to say that certain medical establishments have sold out?
Yes, there's a general question here. Specifically, if we look at pediatrics, gynecology, cardiology, 90% of their budget comes from outside industry. In Spanish, we have a saying that goes, "He who pays gives the orders."
So 90% of their budget comes from private business.
90% of their budget comes from private industry. And more, those are companies in the food industry. I've already made reference to the Spanish Association of Pediatrics, but there's also the Spanish Association of Obstetrics and Gynecology, the Spanish Association of Osteoporosis, the Spanish Association of Nutrition, the Spanish Vaccination Association. All of these groups are like spokesmen for the food industry. It's understandable, sad, but understandable, because he who pays gives the orders. And if you want to continue to receive money, you have to obey the entity giving orders. So yes, you might say that in many cases, these are not really scientific societies. In fact, many of us refer to them as filthy societies. Spotlight from Spain.